be going live in a hot second. Maybe. Hello? Yep, should be streaming. Hello there. How's everyone doing? Just making sure everything's going. Okay, cool. So we should be completely set up and everything. Hello everyone. My name is Kurono, or you can call me Kurono in English. And today I will be presenting on K-pop mixing. I'm a Youtaite mixer, and I've been doing this for about 5 years. And so I've learned some cool tricks over the years, and more so recently doing mix commissions. So I hope to share all these with you, and you can see how I approach K-pop mixing to make some Youtaite bangers that get put out into the world there. Okay, so we'll start with a brief overview of what we'll be going through today. First, I'm gonna start with what characterizes pop mixing. Then I'll go into some tools and plugins that help you create the sound that I consider pop mixing. And then finally, I'll talk about mindset and approach for going into just approaching a mix and seeing what you can do with it and how to make it as best as possible. And also just kind of I guess just some tips for not pushing yourself too hard and not burning out with that. And finally, we'll go into the big focus of this, which will be the live demo. Quite different from the previous stream I did. This one is, the slideshow is going to be really quick, and then the live demo is going to be just kind of the brunt of it. So please ask questions. It's going to be a lot less structured, but more this is what I do and this is how I do it kind of thing, to show you all the tools I use and how I use them. So yeah, jumping straight in, what exactly is pop mixing? The picture on the right is the first picture that popped up when I searched up BTS, so they're pop or something, I don't know. But yeah, pop mixing is characterized by this loud and wide processed vocal sound. It's quite different from ballads and acoustic songs, which are aimed to make the vocal sound as natural as possible. A lot of pop mixes will have big boomy vocals that are either boomy or electronic sounding. There's variety within this genre, within this classification, but this is just kind of how I see it as a whole, and that's how it shapes the approach with the plugins I use. A lot of pop songs nowadays, especially more on the Asian side, like K-pop, C-pop, J-pop, are group vocals. So that's quite different from the singer with a guitar sound. So you have to really focus your mixing around having just thinking about having to mix multiple vocalists as you think about your plugin chain. You're gonna have to do something that's not you're gonna have to make them sound similar but also pop, as the genre implies. And additionally, you're gonna want to use a lot of different effects and textures to make everything sound interesting, because what characterizes pop is probably not less of oh, it's exactly this one thing. It's more like a collection of a lot of different effects that come in, like radio effects or autotune comes in. And so you want to really be experimenting a lot with that. So helpful dollars, dollar plugins, what to spend your money on and all. I recommend, at least these are the things I use. I highly recommend autotune for specific autotune effects. Of course, you don't need it, but it's kind of that $400 polish level or polish of paint that you put on at the end that just really makes things sound good. And I don't know why I just skipped backwards, but it just did. So that's weird. But yeah, so autotune is nice. You don't need it, but it definitely helps. The isotope imager from the Ozone bundle is really solid. Basically what it does is it spreads the vocals, and then you can spread different frequency ranges. And what that does is it literally widens the vocals in a very unique way, and I really like that for getting the pop sound. Moving on, there's also Waves Doubler, and I basically will usually just crank that on either a stock effect or some other presets, and I'll I'll lower the wetness in the mix, and it'll really just give those vocals that mechanical sound without it being too indistinguishable from being like overly processed. And then finally, one of my favorite exciters is actually free right now. So I highly recommend the Slate Digital Fresh Air, which you will get to see in action today. And it's really solid. Highly recommend getting it if you can while it's still free. So the mindset we use, or I like to use when I approach a mix. First off, I like to think about pop mixing kind of as an experiment. Like pop songs usually, especially for covers, will have when you're covering a existing like pop record, there's going to be like radio effects, echo effects, heavy reverb sections, and a lot of different things to go through versus like say you mix an acoustic mix where you have a singer guitar, you just put EQ, put compression on, very little reverb, and then maybe automate the volumes here and there to make it smooth. Obviously, there's more to that, but like the mindset is you have to think about, I'm gonna try a bunch of different things, and I'm gonna make this really cool. So you kind of there's a little bit of a try hard mindset when it comes to pop mixing, in my opinion. Now for specifically the chorus, I like to think about trying to make it, as the kids say, hit different. So specifically, at least what I like to personally do, and you can accomplish this through any other means, I like to make the chorus widen specifically. So that means like I'll use a different imager for the for like the vocals in the verse and vocals of the chorus, or I'll ask, as the next point says, ask my vocalist for doubles. If you have ever worked with me, I will likely have asked you to double your harmonies, and then I may or may not have used them. But I really like vocal doubling for both the texture it can add and the width it can add. So as a mixer, don't be afraid to ask. Both you, the mixer, and the vocalist want to create a really cool cover or production out there. So feel free to ask, and hopefully they'll be in the same mindset of trying to put something that's like the best quality they can out there. So yeah, that's kind of the mindset I like to go in with it. Also, I highly recommend, not quite on there, but as part of having fun, I recommend you break down your mixing into steps. Like I don't do everything in one session. Like I'll do all Melodyne tuning in one session, and then I'll take a break. I'll take all the timing, do that in one section, take a break. And then I'll sit down and I'll go like, okay, today I'm going to do, for the verse vocals, I'm just going to do EQ, compression, reverb, and like some small spatial effects. And I'm not going to nail too much down. And by splitting up the work, it definitely makes it a lot easier. So try not to overload yourself with that. And just like, okay, today I'm going to tackle like funky effects and see what I can get from it. And I think it'll make the experience a lot more fun overall. And yeah, just try things, see if they sound cool, and hopefully you'll like it as much as I do. So, with that, we'll be jumping into the live demo. Gonna peek at the chat. If anyone has any questions just starting off, I haven't really touched on anything, but if anyone just has something to say, feel free to pop it over. I'll give it like a hot minute. Can't wait to learn from the best, Mero? Yes. No, I'm not the best, but but I'm learning, and that's what I'm here to show you guys. Show you that I'm learning, and everyone else can learn too. Apply this to your next K-pop cover. Please do. Hopefully you'll like these cool tips. And yeah. Thanks, Eva. I'm doing my best. And yeah, so we're gonna just jump into the first mix, which is a cover of Fancy that has been approved by all the group members for me to show. This has not been released yet, so this is kind of a sneaky little demo advertising for when it does get released on whoever's channel it will get released on. But yeah, so the song is called Fancy by Twice, which is a K-pop group. And yeah, so basically, I'm just going to break down how I went about this. And you'll notice immediately there are a whole lot of tracks. And you also may see these tracks have very little things on them. So the very first thing I do when I start up a mix that I know is going to be a pop mix is I listen to the song and then I hear about listen to all the different sections there are. So, and those sections there are in the vocals. So I know there's a part where the vocalists will just yell like twice or however they do it. I can't imitate them, but I'll play a sample of that right here.
Twice.
It's literally just they yell twice.
Twice.
And so I consider that very different texture from like main vocals. So I'm going to split every time there's something that seems like a call part, I'm just going to split it into its own section. Like I've just grabbed from each section here, each section here, each section here, and I've just put it into its own thing. Yeah, twice. Yeah, I did aim to play it twice. That was unintentional. But yeah, so by breaking that up, it just kind of allows me to break it down into parts. And so I just don't get overwhelmed with, oh God, I have to like automate all the effects on for this and that. So yeah, I break that up. There's like a small rap section. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to separate that out. I have the solo mains, and then I have some harmonies here, and then some oohs. For this mix specifically, I didn't do anything too fancy for when the chorus comes in, actually. Just because like the vocal textures seem to be working for it. And it wasn't necessarily that like the texture of this one was quite different, but I think you'll see that the chorus still does hit when it hits. So yeah, that's kind of how I went about it. So actually, to start this out, I am going to play you what it sounds like with all the effects on, and then we're going to break it down. So because my computer is not a PC, it's actually a laptop, I'm just going to pull up the fancy, like the actual like rendered mix, and we're going to play this in a separate file. Just because it's going to be easier. So I'm going to play it through to about the half point. Y'all can vibe and listen, and we'll see how it goes. Sorry, it's not like a full build. It's like 16 GB RAM. Wait, you can't hear it? Oh no, the volume. Right! I am so sorry. I was just vibing for like 2 minutes. Let me just set up the volume right now. That is extremely awkward. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna copy and paste this here, and we're just gonna see. That is not what I meant to do. Thanks for the update. We're gonna try this again. This should be playing now. Sorry. There we go. Let me know if that works. Okay, so I hope you like that. Yeah, this one kind of slapped. Not gonna lie, I'm really proud of how this one turned out. But yeah, so now you guys are gonna figure out what I did. You probably, as you were listening, you heard like the twice comes in and it's so wide, and you're like, whoa, twice. Dang, I wonder what the group is called. I wonder why they just yelled that, and they only yelled it once. That sucks. But yeah, so I'm just gonna go down and break it down from the bottom up. So after literally just splitting all the vocals up, I'm actually gonna mute the reverb before we do this. Gonna turn off these effects. Turned off the mastering already. I'll show you my effects chain on the very first vocalist. Additionally, what I'll do is you'll see all these envelopes here. This is just something I do. You technically don't have to do this because compression is really good, but I like to automate like the pre-effects volume for each track, because what it does is it actually shrinks and raises the waveforms, so you can like visually try and make the vocals look consistent. And I just do that because like I want to procrastinate on mixing the actual stuff, so I listen through. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bump up these volumes here until it sounds decent already, and then I'll actually get into the mixing. As a note, I didn't do the time and tune on this. I believe it was Odin, so I can't take credit for the god tier editing on that side. But aside, I had to do some timing things for very, very interesting reasons that I might talk about later. But yeah, like it's just like having the timed and tuned vocals ready. It's really nice to just listen through and pump the volumes. So into the effects chain, we'll see the first thing I slap on is straight up auto-tune. And the reason I have this first is because I'm not really using this to tune. Melodyne's already done its work. The vocals are in tune. But what auto-tune does that Melodyne doesn't really do is, I believe, or at least what I can visually see, is auto-tune adds distortion and harmonics to the vocals. And I can actually demonstrate that in a hot second. So this EQ, Pro Q from FabFilter, actually shows like the frequency spectrum when I play it. So I'm going to play, and you're going to see what happens. So here's the spectrum. And you'll notice here there's this peak up here. And if I turn off auto-tune, it's gone. So you can see auto-tune is actually altering the EQ spectrum of the vocals. So you might think that's bad, you might think that's good. I like the sound of it, so I put it in there. And I think having that extra, like at least mentally, having that extra knowledge that auto-tune has altered the frequency spectrum and made it kind of more sharp, especially with that 20K peak, it allows me to work that in tandem with some of the other effects I use. Like you'll notice I don't really boost the highs too hard, but I have this exciter here cranking hard. This is the fresh air that I advertised earlier. And I feel like the fresh air brings out some of those nice harmonics that auto-tune adds in. As for my auto-tune settings, this is actually just the stock. You buy auto-tune, or you take the 14-day free trial, which I really recommend if you want to try it out. You slap on the default, and this is exactly how it looks. Retune speed 20, flex, vibrato, humanize, all normal, input type soprano. And obviously this is like a high octave cover, like everyone's like got really high voice types, so I've chosen soprano as the input type. But soprano actually works surprisingly well for a good range of voice types. Occasionally there'll be popping and distortion if you're using it on like low octave lines. So if I'm like recording my own voice and I'm singing like fancy you, ooh, I'm like, I'm probably gonna switch it to low male, just because that's how I sing. Does seem like we have a question from Cloris. So, in the event that you are doing the whole mix by yourself, do you use Melodyne for the tune and then auto-tune for coloring, or both in auto-tune? So, great question. I do Melodyne first and then I do auto-tune. Some people, like in the professional industry, I believe, will mostly just use the graph editor on auto-tune. And there's a graph editor. You can basically scan the vocals in, and you can do editing similar to Melodyne. However, fun feature, if you're using Reaper and you do graph edits, in Autotune, and then you close the project, and then you reopen the project, all of your graph edits will be deleted. So that's the main reason I don't do that. So that's really tragic. But alas, if you use Reaper like me, that's what happens. And honestly, I find like if I need to fix something, I can just go into Melodyne and fix it, and Autotune will take it pretty well. That said, I do want to show you exactly how it sounds without, or just with and without Autotune, and you can hear. I hope you will be able to hear how it changes the sound. So I'll play it raw, and then I'll play it with Autotune on, and there will be some slight tonal changes. So it's just raw with time tune. Autotune on. Ignore the stuttering. I think it's just like my computer is used to rendering it with all the effects on. But yeah, so I don't know. Let me know if you could hear it in the chat. But yeah, there's like more air to it, and yeah, it just seems like slightly mechanical, but still sounds natural. So I just really like that. Also, wait, hearing that from Jeff, does it really do that? It's fine for him in Reaper. That's unfortunate. I don't know why it does that for me in Reaper. Maybe my Reaper just sucks, or I don't know. Maybe I suck. That's what happens to me. So I'm just sharing my experience. But if Jeff knows a workaround, or Jeff is able to get it to work, that's pretty cool. But yeah, personally, I just like using Melodyne and Melodyne plus Autotune for the coloration, because the coloration, as you can hear, is definitely there. After that, I throw on a de-esser, but before I talk about that, before I actually put on the de-esser, I actually like to put EQ and compression on, and then throw on the de-esser and tweak the de-esser, which is kind of weird because you would think for something higher in the signal chain you'd put it on first, but for me, I like dialing it in to the right threshold to cut out the S's after I can kind of hear what it's going to approximately sound like after the S's get boosted with compression. So it's kind of like, it's kind of working backwards, but de-essing is pretty straightforward. That's not very poppy, so I'm not really going to talk about that. EQ is just kind of straightforward, cut out mud. I already did my EQ session, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. Just kind of standard serial compression here with like 2.7 ratio, 4.0 ratio. I stole these settings from someone. And yeah, and then multi-banding just to like tame some frequencies because this is like an older mic. And yeah, now we're going to talk about my second actual pop plugin, which is my favorite exciter, the Fresh Air. Also, I think that, let me check the chat. Okay, yeah. David's saying, yeah, it does stutter when there's audio programs often, so, yeah, or more programs open. So, yeah, it does stutter, unfortunately. It might have also been because I opened this extra tab, so I'm just going to close this. And yeah, so unfortunately, it might stutter a little bit. It wasn't stuttering when I was playing it earlier, but very unfortunate. And Jeff says, we can look at your stuff later. Autotune does some weird things, but yeah. Yeah, it's funky. So Fresh Air. I'm just going to play how it sounds without Fresh Air, and then I'll swap it on. So. Sounds decent. And I'll put Fresh Air on. And it just has this like nice brightening sound. A lot of exciters that I've experienced are kind of harsh, but I feel like Fresh Air, when you dial it, isn't too harsh. It's just like it fills in what needs to be filled in, especially with that Autotune stuff in there. So yeah. That's what I like. I've heard some people use this on like professional records and like radio records, so highly recommend. It's free right now, so go get it. And yeah, I do the same thing on every vocalist. Autotune, individual EQ, compression settings are basically the same, except for I change the threshold a bit. Or if I have like a lot of vocals, I'll just try and make the vocals between each vocalist around the same volume so that I don't need to change the threshold. And then fresh air is kind of my mic equalizer in addition to EQ. Like some mics are brighter than others. Like for example, Chisana here has some pretty bright vocals. Oops. Let's play that again. So I really don't need to crank her too hard because she already has a pretty bright voice and a pretty bright mic. So that just works for that. So yeah, exciters I'd kind of dial, depending on the vocalist, decently early in the chain. And then, yeah, and then I just kind of get them to balance out between each other. Now this is, I realized I was playing all this stuff with my effects mostly still on the main bus. So that's why it might have sounded like these vocals are incredible, like completely raw. This is where the main pop magic happens. So I'm gonna play it without this this kind of solo main vocal bus effects, and then I'm gonna go through individually what each of these does and how it does things. Can I make the sound from Reaper a little bit louder? Yes, I can. We're just gonna increase the ACO input a little bit louder. Okay. So this is just no special effects. Turn off looping.
Oh, tell me I'm the only one, babe. I fancy you. I fancy you, fancy you. It's dangerous.
And this is everything else on.
더 세게 꼭 잡아 Take my hand 좀 위험할 거야 더 위험할 거야 baby.
So you can hear these things that I'm doing are widening, they're filling, and they're kind of just making it sound poppy before I've even put like reverb on it or done any mastering, which is pretty nice. So I'm going to go through what each one does. The auto-tune effect that you heard on one of the vocalists, Sagi, is actually just an automation thing here. I have the retune speed here at 20, which is the normal, and then I just dialed it up to 0 automation, and then I turn it back off. So that's nothing fancy from the effects side, but yeah, here's the so this is the this is the pop mixing. Ignore the regate. The regate was just because there's some like fuzzy noise, but first off we have a modulator. To be honest, this isn't that important, but I like it, and the reason I like it is because it just spreads a little bit and gives it that poppy sound. It doesn't contribute as much as the doubler, but it's nice. Also, I believe this is free, so Azurite by Distorqui, I'm not going to say that right, is really solid, so I recommend that. I believe, yeah, this is just the basic effects, and I've had 0% wetness. Great. And I'm only using it in this one spot. What is this one spot? Ah. Okay. I used it twice throughout the whole thing. We're not going to talk about the modulator yet. We're going to talk about the modulator when we get into adding interest. Okay, the actual workhorse is the isotope imager. This is no secret, but the isotope imager puts in incredible work. So I'm going to play it again raw, and then we're going to add the imager on, and you're going to hear the difference.
지금 하늘 구름색인 tropical yeah 저 태양 빨간 빛 내들 볼 같아 Oh tell me I'm the
so that's on.
One, babe.
Then we're going to turn it off.
I fancy
Off.
you, fancy you. It's dangerous.
Back on.
괜찮아, 좀 더 난 겁나지 않아. 더 세게 꼭 잡아. Take
Off.
my hand, 좀 위험할 거야.
On.
더 위험할 거야, baby.
So you can definitely hear the witchcraft, right? Like this is the cornerstone. Whatever sounded like raw and flat before suddenly is spread, suddenly is brightened. It's incredible. So basically how I go about, I crank the stereo delay here anywhere past 10. And this is kind of my knob for controlling how poppy I want it to be. If I want to go like, let's see. This still sounds, oh wait, I have it automated so I can't crank it. So if I crank it down, it's like definitely weird sounding. Bring it up.
Fancy you, fancy you. It's dangerous.
So it's kind of the main controller on the width, I feel. After a certain point, between like 14 and 20, it kind of becomes indistinguishable, but between 1 and like 10 is very noticeable. So yeah, Isotope is so good. I like to crank the highs and spread the highs quite a bit. You'll notice when I go into the harmonies, I spread the highs even more on the harmonies just to smear and kind of like give it that cloud, like floating cloud feeling. And yeah, the mids kind of have a medium impact, but definitely spreading the lows really makes things feel spacious. So I'm gonna crank this off, and you're gonna see.
지금 하늘 구름 색인 tropical yeah 저 태양 빨간빛 내들 볼 같아 Oh tell me I'm the only one babe I fancy you
So usually you don't want to crank it like super wide, so I try not to. But in some cases, you can hear how interesting it sounds. It can definitely be used as a point to add interest in points of the mix. So you can see like as you spread, it does very interesting things. It's not, I don't think it's quite distortion. I mean, it might add some artifacts in there, but it's like, if anything, it's like witchcraft plus magic. I don't know. It's spreading, but I have no idea how they accomplish that. All right, next is the doubler, which I throw on, and the doubler kind of it just also makes things poppy. Like I can't quite explain how it works. It adds in phasing and stuff, but it sounds good. So this is with it off.
Oh, tell me I'm the only one.
It just adds a slight amount of like interest. I think it fills out the vocals, but honestly, it's quite hard to hear. Let me play it with the instrumental. So off, on, off, on. It's really subtle. That also is attributed to me having it at like 30% or something. Let's see, 31%. But it fills in the vocals. It's really subtle, but I like it. Yeah, I don't know if Imager... So there's Isotope Imager Elements has like some stuff. I think it has a spreader, but it doesn't have like the individual frequency controls, which is unfortunate. I really wish it did. Or at least if it does have them, I haven't looked into it. So, because I don't have it. But, yeah, like the frequency controls are kind of the ones we really want. The stereo rise is good, but I think like this gives you a lot more control. So I recommend that. And yeah. And last I have this one knob pressure, which is automated off through most of it. So, okay, this is... I'm going to come back to this. But one knob pressure and the Azerate are just to add interest at this specific entrance point. Like here, there's the intro, the pickup into the chorus. It's like... And the only reason I put it in there was because I'm like, I just want to emphasize that line. So I'm not going to talk too much about that yet. So yeah, that's the main vocals, and that's kind of the magic that goes into that. Next, I feed it through what I call this pre-effects compressor. I don't know why I call it pre-effects. It's just a name I came up with it. But basically, this takes all the vocals and it compresses them more, and it's just something I do in my mixes. It just brings them more forward. It's it is what it is. That's not really a pop mixing thing. That's just a me mixing thing. Then I have reverb delay. I'm not gonna go too much into reverb and delay because that's a whole nother like ballpark of stuff. Like I split up earlier. I spelled delay wrong. I do that sometimes. This is I don't know, man. I don't know. This is H delay. H delay is great. Yeah, like I just split up the earlier reflections, the tail. That's just a whole nother lecture. I have a Valhalla reverb here, I think. Yeah, Valhalla plate. I don't know, man. I don't know. And track spacer. Track spacer is basically like a multi-band compressor, and I have it side-chained. So basically, this is just like ducking the vocals whenever, or ducking the reverb whenever the vocals come in, and it's pretty quick attack and release. It releases actually kind of long, but it just makes the vocals sound more dry. So this is the effect of the reverb. So dry. I'm gonna mute the harmonies. It just adds space. That's what reverb does. Just something specific to pop, I guess, is like I try to be pretty subtle with reverb and delay unless it's like a section where you want to crank up the reverb and delay. So the dry sound is just what I like, but you may experiment with this. This is also another effects track I had on. It's just kind of doing stuff. We can talk about that later. So, okay, I'm going to go into another section of vocals, which is probably the most interesting section after the solo mains. So I'm just going to mute the solo mains and collapse this. Just turn off all these effects, because otherwise my computer's going to die. Turn these off, and we're going to go into the shouting section, which is really fun. This is a section I had a lot of fun with. I was listening to the song. I'm like, how am I going to do this? And putting it together was really fun. So let's see. How do we go about this? I'm going to turn off the reverb again, turn off the pre-effects compressor, and we're just going to hear it raw. You heard it raw earlier, but I'll just play it again for comparison. Twice! Gotta play it twice. So, as you can see, it just sounds like a bunch of people yelling twice. Nothing too special. And what I've done is I've literally taken the effects from the main vocals. You'll see, where's Chisa? And you may notice these look really similar, and in actuality, they are. They're the exact same thing. I've copy and pasted all of the basic effects from the mains. So, turn it on.
Twice.
It just does exactly what it does. EQ, compression, de-esser. I don't know why. Do I have auto? I have auto-tune on. Don't need it, but it's there. Yeah, trick never fails. It's so good. But yeah, so it seems fine. But yeah, when you put all the EQ compression on, it adds up to sounding really nice. Twice! So it sounds more full, more controlled than before. Twice! Just a little bit more controlled, but it doesn't quite sound like how it should sound. And that's where all these chorus effects come in. You can see there's a little bit more on this bus. First of all, I appear to be... I don't know if this... Yeah, this EQ is automated, so I'm not going to talk about that yet. Notable thing, I de-S all group vocals that aren't the mains, because I don't want all the S's just cutting through and overloading the compressors and whatever's going on. So I put on a second de-esser just so the S from the twice is tamed down, and you hear the twi a little bit more, because that's... The transients is kind of what's more important about that. Then I have another EQ here. I'm not going to talk about EQ yet. And a compressor here. Compressor is very interesting. This is kind of like a medium compressor, but what it's doing is let me just show you what it's doing, actually. It's much better if I just show you. It's making things more thick, as compressors tend to do. So that... It's just a little bit thicker. Let me actually just loop it. And as it's looping, you'll notice the difference a little bit more pronounced. Twice. Just a little bit more poppy when it's on. It just hits different. Next we have the. Wait one sec. Let me make sure it's not looping. It's not looping. Next we have in the line we have the. Let's see. I have the Azurite automated, I believe. It's automated off at this point, and automated on at some other points. Or maybe I'm not using it. I might not be using it at all. Sometimes I have effects on here, and then I just don't use them because I don't like them. Oh, okay, it's at 10% throughout the whole thing, so it's really subtle. And I don't know if you're going to notice it at all. It's really subtle. That was just kind of something I threw on there. But yeah, sometimes you just do that. It's just a little bit more. And then, of course, we have the magical tool itself, the isotope imager. I have fully cranked this thing. This thing is a full stereo. The width is almost as high as it can go. Like it's going, and
Twice.
it makes a difference.
Twice.
So this is like, it's centered. It's like there is some panning on it. Like each of the vocals, each of these shouts are kind of like your pan 75, your pan 50 left and right, blah 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 blah. But it just adds that width to it.
Twice. Twice.
And what it also does is it has it basically forces the vocals a little bit further back in the mix because you're adding stereo delay. And what that does is it adds this difference in character from the main vocals. So you hear the twice in the background, and then the Korean vocals in the front are just going, and it's really interesting.
Twice.
Let me unmute this. So you have, so they're going. Skip to. And I'm going to turn off the imager and you'll hear the difference. It's just night and day, really, with the isotope imager. So this is the secret to pop mixing. Additionally, I have the doubler going, so... It's, again, really subtle, but it just does a little bit. Very subtle, but does its thing. And then once again, when I get into adding interest, I have this H delay that's like going on and an R verb. And that's just pushing them a little bit, pushing these vocals a little bit further back. So we'll hear it with an on and then off. So I'll go back to the twice part. That's in the front. And then you can hear the delay as I stop it. As I stopped it like the first time, you hear the bing, 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 ping pong. I don't think it's ping pong. Yeah, it's just an eighth note delay. And yeah, it just forces them a little further back. This one less because I've automated down the delay, but yeah, just shoves things a little bit further back. Yeah, it makes the shouts sound a little bit closer, but at the same time, it's actually pushing them back, right? It's so funny. I don't know. Mixing is weird, but it's cool. So yeah, that's that section. Then the rap is honestly, it's a really short section. These are just copy and pasted effects. I still have auto-tune on them. Don't ask. Don't ask, just look. And what I did for the rap is I compressed it a little bit more using a CLA 76, which is like a thick boy compressor. I have the imager going. This one, it's actually cranked less, but like the body is stretched a little bit more. So let's actually hear this little rap part here.
A.
This is totally raw.
A.
A.
A. A.
Ooh. Okay. Let's just put the effects on.
A. A.
Just standard EQ compression stuff. And then we'll go through the bus effects or folder effects. So compressor is doing a little bit of work.
A. A.
So turn it off.
A. A.
Turn it back on.
A. A.
So I probably should have shown the effects. Sorry, let me do that.
A.
So it's literally just pumping the vocals and making them like punch through a little bit. So, uh-huh. Yeah, that's what I thought. So yeah, it's literally just doing that. It's compressing, and I like the CLA-76 because it's really good at pumping. Like, it's such a hard compressor that you usually don't want to use it for, like, main vocals. But for rap, it really shines. Now we'll throw on the signature imager.
Ay. Uh-huh. Ay. 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 Ay.
So it's just spreading, and it's doing its thing. It sounds really processed, but it's cool. Doubler again, doing very little, but enough.
Ay. Uh-huh. Ay.
Actually,
Ay.
the doubler's cranked pretty hard,
Uh-huh.
so you can kind of hear it now.
Ay. 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 Ay.
And it's just adding that little bit of forwardness to it. You compress everything. So David compresses everything with the CLA-76 just really light. Yeah, I struggle. I struggle with getting it as light as possible because, like, that 4 ratio is still slapping. Oh, okay, and last on the rap vocals, I have an H delay, which is just, it's making it spacious.
Ay. Uh-huh. Ay.
So let's play it with the vocals and see what's going on there.
난 정말 아무것도 못하네. 엉망이지. 이러다 큰일 날 것 같은데. 머리가 허리들이 새지그래. 어쩌면 좋아.
So, as you heard, like, before I put on the delay, it sounded pretty forward, which might be what you want, but I felt like for this section, because they want to be spread out in the back, adding a delay in would be good just to let them sit and not shine, but still add texture. So that's my thought process between adding in the delay. It's just something I thought would be cool. And I like how it turned out. So that's that section. That's kind of how I approach rap when it comes to pop music. And then finally, we kind of have the harmonies and ooze section, which are quite similar. Harmonies, kind of straightforward. It's just like I had doubles and I opted not to use them because they actually didn't really fit with how I had mixed it. So let me just get these on. I just didn't like how they sounded, so I muted them and didn't do anything with them. But yeah, let's listen to the harmonies. This is with effects on.
Hey, I love you. No, I see you. 꿈처럼 행복해도 돼. 'Cause I need you.
These are just kind of the standard EQ and compression, auto-tune stuff that I put on everything. But yeah, what's special is... Wait, is this going on both of them? Yes, it is. Okay, so I have some extra EQ on the harmonies. I'm just trying to cut out the highs here to make it interesting and not clash too much with the main vocals because the main vocals are pretty bright. So there's that. I have another de-esser going on, as I mentioned before. The de-esser just takes out all those S's that may be sticking out. You don't really need sibilance in the harmonies because the main point is the tone, not the consonants. So that's why I have that. And then, yeah, I have a gate going because there was like some noise or like some fuzziness, so I just cut that out with the gate. And then, yeah, EQ is kind of something special here. I ducked like the center section a lot. I boosted the highs because it lets the harmony shine through without the weight coming through. Or, sorry, it lets the highs shine through without the weight coming through. I have a multi-band just to tame even more of the S's up there. Another de-esser, because I just didn't want them. Period. I just moved that. That was an accident. I had a compressor, apparently, and then I took it off. Because I decided I didn't need it. And once again, you see, these are almost as spread as the twice shouts. Like, it's extremely obvious. Just extremely spread. Doubler on, let's see, 30%, I think that is. It's not too high. And then this is kind of my cheater EQ. I want to make it sound smooth kind of thing.
Hey, I love you.
It's really subtle, but as everything is, but it just cuts out the highs. Or some things that are just poking through. So that's the harmonies. They're pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy. Like, they're not even panned. They're dead center through the whole thing, but the imager just spreads them so well that I don't need to pan them. There's some oohs here. Once again, just like, these are extremely wide. Let's just hear them. Let me just turn these off. So this is just standard EQ compression, copy pasted. Then we put on the effects. Yeah, I mean, it makes a world of difference. But yeah, so let's see, what do I have to say about this? Like, obviously it's spread, but you can hear just how much that does. I'm gonna play it. That's not creating the whole sound though. I have one knob wetter, cranked small, just adding a little bit more interest. And the delay, ping pong delay is really good. Ping pong delay on like 30% or something is really good for setting up those spacious, like, background vocals. So I really like using that as a tool for that. So that's just something I do. And it just adds that, like, that surreal, like, you're sitting in the hall kind of sound. So yeah. And honestly, that's how I approach pop mixing. And then you put it all together, all of it together, and you get what I had earlier. Just and yeah, one thing I haven't really touched on is mastering. Mastering is kind of like, it depends on what plugins you have. I kind of just threw Waves plugins at it. But like, I just have something to pump the mix, which is this SSL. Some people don't really like it. I've Soothe too, on balance to the Grammy Awards preset, because I'm like, well, this is a pop track. I'll just throw this on here. L2 is my limiter. I have Pro L just because it makes me feel comfortable. But it kind of just, it is what it is. Limiting isn't really something I want to go into about this. And while we have a little bit of time left, I want to talk about how I like to add interest and where I feel like I want to add interest. Or like, it's kind of like, how do you change the thing so it doesn't sound uniform throughout? Like, variety is the spice of life. So how do I add variety so my mix doesn't sound flat? So here's where I'm going to go and talk about this little boop here going into the chorus. So let me just turn on the effects again for the mains, turn off these effects. You'll know the reason I'm turning these on and off is because my CPU isn't enough to handle it. And yeah, so let's see. There's this little lick here. Alright, so please. Okay. And it's literally just, I'm putting a little bit of modulation on it. That's it. Like, the volume is a little bit louder too, just to make it stand out, because I want this to punch into it, kind of. And kind of my reasoning for that is just like, it sounds like the kind of note that should be a lead in. And when you want like, let's see what's going on in the instrumental. The instrumental is getting quiet here. So I want this to take the forefront of the stage and to pump through. So I'm like, okay, how do I do that? Well, one, I can make it louder, and two, let's just make it sound funky. So small amount of imaging there. Also, one thing I did mention I want to make the chorus pop, so as you can guess, I cranked up the stereo imaging just between the verse and the chorus. So the chorus is at 15.01, the verse is at 14, and you can see I just switched between these two. Second chorus is a little bit more spread. The bridge is not spread because the background vocals and the oohs are kind of doing their own spreading. And then once again we're back to more spread at the chorus. So yeah, it's just kind of it's just like, okay, I want the chorus to be wider, so I'm going to spread it more, then I'm going to spread the vocals. So feel free to experiment with what you think is going to make things wider and not, or what's going to make what pop and what not. You'll also notice let me turn these effects back off. You'll also notice on my twice shouts and stuff, there's this section which seems to have some funky automation. So let's see what we did here. I cranked down the H delay, I cranked down the doubling, and I put on this EQ. I have no idea which EQ this is, but I'm gonna guess it's something that does something pretty severe. Maybe. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so it's... Or no, actually, that's not a good way to look at it. Let me see. Is it this EQ? Alright, let's see. I'm just gonna try and figure out which EQ it is. It's slightly laggy because it is what it is. Okay, so it's this EQ that I automated here. Or that I automated on for this like background singing section. And what it's doing is I'm cutting out the highs because I want it to not sound super bright. So let's see what happens when this is off. Let's see where. See it here. It's just a little bit too much when you don't have this here. So I put it on to make it sound a little bit less and less bright. So that's what I like about it. Just like throwing things at her. I lowered the doubling, and yeah, it's just kind of experimenting. Like for example, someone else mixing this song might choose a different way to do these effects here to make these the twice and the I don't speak Korean, but this section to sound different. This is just my choice of tools to make it to add interest. And yeah, is there anything else? I guess I can start taking questions. I have one other mix that I just kind of want to briefly run through that has like radio effects more as the focus. So I'm gonna pull that up. But otherwise, it's pretty much like that's how it goes. So feel free to ask some questions in the chat. Shoot them across. Like I don't know. I don't have the questions you guys do. So fire when ready. I'm just gonna set this up in the meantime so that it plays through. It plays through OBS. So this is a cover of the Love Live song called Daring. Yeah, Daring. It's actually supposed to be Darling, but it's mistranslated. How long have I been mixing? I think maybe like 2015, so that's like 6 years. But like to be completely honest, I sucked. Like starting out, like the first time I met like Foam and like a bunch of other people. Like I just straight up asked all of them for their like effects. I'm like, how do you mix? And I was probably like really annoying. I was really annoying. But yeah, like, oh my gosh, all the questions I asked Mochi too. Like, I sucked. Probably try not to pester people as much as me, but it got me to where I am now. So it is what it is. But yeah, oh no way. So we've been mixing pretty much for the same time, yeah. But yeah, I definitely think like doing a lot of mixes and working on stuff is like how you improve. Like trying new things, especially like a lot of people in like my circle didn't really use like CLA 76 or like C1, and I used it for a long time, and like I kind of had that as part of my mixing sound, and then I found out I didn't really like it after a while, but by trying that, I kind of understood what sound I liked and what I didn't. So yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, how the tables have turned, indeed. So yeah, I'm just gonna play this mix. I don't think this one should lag because it's not like a bajillion vocalists, but we're just gonna see. Let me know if you can hear the sound too in the chat. I'm just gonna be looking at it. Let me know if you can hear it. Okay, all good. I'm just gonna play the first half, and then we're gonna probably wrap it up soon. Auto-tune. Auto-tune.
I say number one, my love, only one. Darling, baby. My words are go-go. I can spend the night into my night. My words are go-go.
Yeah, so as you can see, there's some similarity to what's going on in the previous mix. There's a backing section, which is kind of the don't worry, don't waddy. So that's going on. There's a harmony section. These are also not panned, which is kind of wild. And then a main section and a chorus section, which is panned. So like the chorus section is kind of that radio effect going on. And so the reason I've split this actually from the backing section, which is the don't worry, is because I want them to like sound different and be more spacious. This one, the backing obviously is like more reverby sounding, and then this one's more up in your face radio effects. So you'll see that reflect in the effects. The background has like H delay on it. It has the it has this cranked up to like 81 and like 18.5. Like it's put in work. It's got like a compressor to like tighten it up, and then it's got the H delay doing the spatial effects. Versus this section has less. It has like FabFilter Saturn as part of that distortion effect, Manny M distortion as part of the distortion effect. I believe the modulation is okay. Modulation's not doing much, as usual. But like the double or the imaging is less severe. I mean, it's still pretty cranked because it's not the same as the mains, but it's going. And yeah, trust me, the secret to panning is just isotope imager. That's what it is. You'll also see like a bunch of these sections have like a ton of automation going on. And this is basically me saying, I want this to be a radio effect, but I want it to have the same character as the mains. Like, because see, the mains here don't actually have that much going on. They have a multiband, and they got like way less on the stereo image, and just kind of medium leveled imaging. So, and then doubling, of course. But yeah, like this section is... It's in your face, so that's kind of how you can control that. Like, it's like the imager is like a control knob for where in the mix it's sitting, in addition to reverb. But yeah, like this section, it's just, it's in your face, harmonies are in the back, a little bit more width on the harmonies compared to the mains. So where's this? Is this in the backing? Yeah. Just some stuff in the back. Auto-tune automation. Just it is what it is. Yeah, so the harmony sounds so cool on this. But yeah, that's kind of how I go about it. You'll also notice like the mains don't have as many things going on, and that's just kind of what the song asked for. Like, and you'll notice like the splitting is different. There's no one yelling twice, so there's no like super reverby like background vocals aside from like this "Don't Worry," which is it's similar to like the Twice shout from the Twice song, but not quite. So yeah, that's why it's slightly different sounding. But yeah, this cover also isn't out, Eva. This is another sneak preview, but I was also given permission to show this one. So, yeet. This is Darling's cover of Daring. So look forward to this one. This one's gonna be a banger as well. And yeah, actually, what's interesting about this one is I didn't like the reverb tail I initially had set up, so I muted it. Another thing is I play around with reverb. Like some sections have more reverb than others, or different reverb from others, just depending on the style. Again, that's something for a reverb and delay video. I don't want to go into that, but it's part of adding that interest to a pop mix. It's like you want it to pop, but like some sections you want to be washy and some sections you want to be in your face. So it's just whatever the song is asking for. Soothe tune, soothe 2, some dynamic EQ, whatever. Yeah. So I'm going to open the floor to questions, and then we'll probably close it out. So ask away, and yeah. In the meantime, I guess I can just play some of the mix in the background. And yeah. Post the reverb delay video. How does it feel to be powerful? It feels great. As soon as I started using Imager, my world changed. This is just a banger. One vote for that. The mix is very loud. I read it It's a loud one. Let me just bring it down while I talk. Yeah, like this section is verse reverb, Pro R. And I swap that off into this delay, which I crank up. And then this reverb kind of takes the stage a little bit more. Plate reverb. This delay is kind of going throughout. Short delay. Alright, so Waves is having a sale on vocal plugins. What are a few plugins that come to mind with essential purchases? That is a great question. Okay, so let me see. What are some of the favorite ones? Well, first of all, definitely the Waves Doubler is super solid. It just fills out some space. It's not quite like the Isotope Imager level, but I use that on every mix. Let's see what else I got going on here. Do Not Perceive. This is a lot of effects. Let's see. What else do I use from Waves? I really like... I don't know if this is in the... timing process. Sorry, I'm going to go through Waves and then I'll talk about timing process. On my master bus, I use a lot more Waves plugins. So I really like the SSL comp on my master. I don't use it on every master because sometimes it pumps a little bit too hard, but it's really solid. L2 stereo, or L2 from Waves, great mastering plugin. Pro L is not Waves. Yeah, those are definitely the ones I go to the most. I really liked the C one for a while, but I thought it was too aggressive, so I moved off of that. Rverb is what I use on every mix now for my reverb. Specifically because I can control the early reflections and the reverb, or the reverb tails, so it's just got a lot of great control. I really like it. So Rverb from Waves, really good. Let's see, what else do I use? H-Delay. H-Delay is really, really good. Yeah, Eva hit it. H-Delay is just such a solid delay plugin. CLA 76 2A, 3A are all really good for certain things, but I just don't use them in my mixes anymore. But I could still recommend them if you see them on sale and want to pick them up. And yeah, I think that's kind of like the down low for all the Waves plugins I use. Yeah, our verb tutorial. There's already a really great tutorial out there that I can try linking in the description. It's just so good. And yeah, okay, videos on my timing process. Yeah, I used to stream and then I stopped because my at-home internet isn't strong enough. This stream is actually on one of my friend's internet. I'm in his room at his computer station using my laptop. So yeah, I don't have videos on my timing process, but I think Mochi does the same thing, and she has a video on it on the channel. But yeah. Oh, and the fresh air settings. Yeah, fresh air is honestly just to taste. It's super simple. Like it has two knobs and you just turn them. So.
Darling.
Oh Jesus, that's loud. Let's go through here. Like. So let's just turn it down. I'm like, okay, this sounds kind of dull. That's too much. That's not doing enough. Too much. It seems fine. Okay, what about this? Oh, way too much. And then I ended up around here, So it's really just like playing with it. I don't have like a specific go-to. Yeah, it has two knobs and you turn them. Right? But it's like, wow, wait, that actually made a difference, right? And I specifically like it for pop. I can't necessarily recommend it for all genres because not all genres really ask for exciting or exciters, but it works for pop. So, yeah. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, David. I'm really glad it was educational because that was kind of what I was going for with this. Oh no, you can't get it to install. That's not good. I honestly don't know. Maybe try like checking your like settings up here with your plugins and VSTs maybe. But yeah, yeah. If no one has any more questions, I think I'll drop off here. And feel free to ask anything in the comments if you'd like, and I'll try and answer. But yeah, good luck with getting Fresh Air downloaded. It's so solid, and I highly recommend it. Other exciters aren't quite it for me, at least. But yeah, glad I could help. Thank you, Eva. I hope it was entertaining. I am going to I'm gonna pop out now. Thank you all for coming. Be sure to check out any future upcoming videos on whatever it's called, Youtaite resources on reverb and delay, if that might be coming to a future near you. And yeah, so I'll see you all on the next one or the one after that, whatever happens. Yeah.